This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it's time for Avoid the Maze. We're not really going to avoid it. I want you to understand that, everybody, because the maze is life. And we start down a path, and sometimes we make a right turn, a left turn. Sometimes we turn around and go back to the beginning. And that's okay. But sometimes we can learn from each other. And I know until I became the person I am today that said, hey, I want to hear how other people do it. And I'm not going to compare myself to them, but I'm going to say to myself, maybe I can do it too. Maybe I've been taking the wrong path, or maybe my path is bumpy and I can learn how to find those tools to smooth it out. My guest today is Jameka. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it right. Jameka Witten.
Jameka Witten. Yes, correct.
Okay, I got it right. And when I read your background on Podmatch, um, you just seem to have it all. And it's like, and I love when I have people on as my guests who that's how their bio reads, because we know there's something missing. We know that there have been some stumbling blocks. So give us a little bit of background.
Okay. Professionally, I've been in the communications industry for 20 plus years. First as a journalist and then switching gears as a publicist, PR pro and brand manager. And it has been an interesting journey. I have been, how do I put it? Almost like a free spirit working within the corporate arena, right? So I've always known that I wanted my own business. I always knew that I wanted to build that, but I didn't do the traditional route of, let me go and get a traditional business loan and just start doing this and go straight to business school and then do a round of funding and all of these things. Like
Right.
that's not how my life went. It was more of, this feels really good. Let me try this. And then let me learn from this person and let me do that. So, it started with me being in college where I thought that I was going to be Oprah, right? Like I thought I was going to be the next broadcast journalist sensation. And although I do like being on camera, I knew that that wasn't the ultimate purpose. I think once I realized that what I needed to do and what fueled me was helping other people build their story and expand their brand and get their voices heard, fulfillment came. And it was hard because I've been in entertainment and communications all these years, right? And it's really difficult when you are bootstrapping and going after your passion without necessarily having the dollars behind you. And I've worked at really great corporations and have done really substantial work, but the fulfillment comes from realizing your purpose and trying to get there.
That's a very important word, and it is purpose. And so many of us, we go through life wondering what our purpose is. We don't take the time to sit back and say, what is it that I really want to do? And I love your story in the fact that you started in this industry 20 years ago. I'm going to take you back 30 years prior to that when I was graduating high school and I wanted to get into communications. I didn't know there was an Oprah, but I saw there were a few women who were sort of testing the water, and especially on the morning shows.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who I wanted to be. And my parents said, absolutely not. We're not going to spend our money sending you to college to get a communications degree because women just are not going to make it in the industry. And so, I sort of fought them on it. I got my uh, associates in communications, but I realized, where was I going to go with it? I didn't have I didn't have the connections, and I was good, but I wasn't good enough to go knock on somebody's door. and say, hey, take me in. So I tried using those skills in every job I had along the way.
Mm.
And I think that's important. It sounds like that's what you were doing in the big corporation, saying, okay, I'm making money, I'm putting a roof over my head, I have food on my table, but I can experiment a little bit so
Mm-hmm.
that maybe at the end of the day, I have fulfilled my purpose at least this much.
Oh, absolutely. I think about my corporate experience as my training ground. It was, okay, I know what I want, and I need to figure out how it works for other people and how structures and processes are in place and what I can learn from these. What I'm going to take the great and leave the best, leave the rest of it. I want to take what's really good and what really works for me and what kind of corporate culture I want to build for myself and for anyone who works with me. And it was eye-opening, kind of seeing, you're in there and you're in that rat race, right? And you're looking around and people are consumed with getting ahead and making as much money as possible, but they are coming home exhausted every single day. They don't have time to do their passion projects. They don't have time to, you're living for the weekend, which is 2 days.
Yeah.
That's just, it boggles my mind that we put so much work in and we take so little time for rest and relaxation. And this is coming from someone who is still a workaholic. So I am still trying to create that balance for myself. But what I did was try to make what I do on a daily basis not feel like a burden and
Right.
not feel, it's work and it's hard work, but it's fulfilling work. So that eases it in a little bit. It makes it a little bit more digestible so that you're not just living for the weekend.
I totally understand that because when I was working at my corporate job, it was for a for-profit college. The work I personally did, I loved. The culture was horrible. Okay. But when I could focus on what I was doing, I didn't care if I was there 60 hours a week because I was getting what I needed out of it. And when I came home, yes, I was exhausted, but I could say to my family, this is what I accomplished. This felt good. But yet, towards the end of my time there, they didn't like what I was doing because I was putting in more time than they wanted me to.
Mm,
But I was doing it because there was a need. It was a need for me, but it was a need for my students. And it was like, I'm not going to walk away at 5 o'clock when I can do something that is fulfilling. And so when I left corporate America, I felt like, now what? But it didn't take me long to say, hey, these are the things you can do. This
mm-hmm.
is what you did well. Why aren't you doing it now? And so it's not always easy,
Right.
but when you want to do it and you can get a little bit of support around you, and that support means not all the negative Nellies saying, hey, Jameka, don't ever leave your 9 to 5 job because, hey, it's never going to pay off. And there are a lot of people who will say that. Number one, because they're jealous. Number two, because they don't understand it.
Mm-hmm. And they don't want you to fail, right?
Right.
So
That's true too.
the people closest to you feel, if they don't have their eyes open in the same way, and they're so traditional that it's just like tunnel vision, like this is what you do to make a living and then retire, and then this is the path, then sometimes that gets a little, the message gets muddled. I was so thankful that I had parents who they were like, go forth and prosper. My mother was my biggest cheerleader ever. Like, she was just like, I always, she had an entrepreneur spirit about her as well. She worked jobs, but she also always had something that she was doing, and she relished in that. And she put that deep into my spirit very early. And she always told me, even when I didn't believe in myself, she was like, you can do absolutely anything. So part of what I try to do with, especially with young folks on my team and young people that I meet, I try to pour that same energy back into them, because I realize that people are not encouraging folks. They're doing these motivational speeches and these motivational things on, social media, or these conferences or what have you, and that's great. But I'm talking about that genuine one-on-one, someone just pouring life into you and saying, you can do this. And it's
Absolutely.
important, especially when you don't have it at home.
I ran into a parent of one of my son's friends from high school. Now, my son is in his early 30s, so I haven't seen this woman probably almost 20 years. And she asked me what my son was doing. And I told her, and she goes, well, he lived at home a long time, didn't he? I said, yes. And I said, there were a couple reasons for that. We allowed him to pursue his dream. We allowed him to find something fulfilling for himself. And I said, it's not like we said, hey, everything is going to be free for you here. Yeah, you've got to be out there working. You've got to show us that you're working towards what you want. And he did. And when he got to the point where it was like, okay, I'm packing up my car and I'm moving, as hard as that was for me, it was the most precious day of my life, because he was living his dream. And my parents talked about my brothers and I living our dream. But at the same time, we were always reminded, you got to put food on your table. You got to go to work 9 to 5. You got to do this. You got to do that. And so we had the encouragement, but then it was taken away from us. And I did not do that with my sons. If this is what you want to do, go ahead and do it. I'd rather see you, if you're going to fail, I'd rather see you fail young, figure it out, and go on to the next step. Don't wait until you're 56 years old and say, this is what I've always wanted to do all my life, but I can't do it even now. No.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about your business. What is it that you do? How are you encouraging people and supporting them?
Well, I own a JSW Media Group, which is a public relations and brand management agency. So I help people tell their story. Simply put, I help them either build or expand their brand. And, that is so important nowadays, especially nowadays when you have all of the clutter of social media and the bombardment of all the media coming at you. How do you stand apart? And how do you make yourself seen? And one of the core values of how I do business and what my agency does is everything is rooted in authenticity. Everything is rooted in realness. We want you to be your best self, whatever that means. And we really try to amplify your core business values for each and every client. So, it's a cliche, but we do treat people like they're part of our family. And that's how I approach each client. Like, I am indoctrinating myself into your world and
Right.
learning you and helping you amplify your best self.
And some of us, when you ask us, how do we want to brand ourselves? We feel like, oh no, I want to hide from that. Okay. It's like, I don't want to be that exposed, but you have to be if you're going to take your purpose forward. People
Absolutely.
have to know not just what your logo is, but why did you create that logo? Who are you? What are you doing with that logo? What are you achieving? And what else do you want to achieve? And when I was asked that question, when I started podcasting 10 years ago, my first answer was, oh, I just want to share people's stories. And they said, but that's good. But what's behind it all? Why do you want to share them? And for the first year, I couldn't tell you. It was like, I don't know. It was a need. But then I started to realize why. Number one, it was helping me grow. So, I would thank my listeners. Thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me have Jameka on today, because I'm learning from her. And you get to listen to the conversation. And maybe it's going to help you grow as well.
I love that. I love that. Yes, it's one of those things. It's an old adage, but it's very true. People do business with those that they like and trust. Not saying you have to be likable to everyone, but when you are true to yourself and you're true to your brand and you are authentic, the right customers, the right clients, the right market will come to you.
So if you get this individual who's a novice, has no idea, they have an idea in their head of what they want to do. But like me, a little over 10 years ago, I don't know why I want to do it. I just feel it in the pit of my stomach. Any special tools that you use to get me to pull that out of my gut so that it resonates where it really needs to be?
A lot of conversation, a lot of discussion. It's not a one size fits all. I try to customize based on those first few conversations with someone, and maybe that's in the form of a consultation. I say consultation, but it really is a really long conversation is what ends up happening. And I try to get you to start thinking about, and I'm asking questions that are pulling things out of you. It's not cookie cutter. You may go to some agencies where they're just like, okay, here's a list of things you got to do. Go do your homework, come back to me, and then we'll get this thing, we'll get it done. I need to know your why. And we are not leaving that session until I figure out what your why is. Because once I know your why, then we can build how to get there, how to go there, what your goals are, what your priorities are. When I figure out what you hold dear, what your core values are, then the real work begins. Then we can have some fun and figure out how to amplify your brand and make your brand actually match what your core values are. Because sometimes what you think your brand is and what you really are about and what your why is are two completely different things.
And we also have to know that all that can change as we're evolving.
Yes, yes.
And that was something, again, I didn't quite understand. I thought when I finally figured it out, okay, this is what I want to do. This is why I want to do it. I'm going to do it. But then I found myself about every year thinking, but I could do it a little differently, or I can add this to the mix. And my husband is wonderful. He's very supportive, but every once in a while he'd say to me, why are you adding more? And I kept saying, because it's not complete yet. There's more to it. And as time evolves, we all evolve. And so my core values were actually changing. And he said to me, probably about a month or so ago, you're more focused than you've ever been in your whole career. And I said, yes, because I have to see the landscape. I have to see when I have to pivot. Because if I keep going down this straight path, I'm going to miss something along the way. And that's where your company comes in, because you ask the questions, you remind us of these things. That is this all you want to do? Just keep going straight and putting those blinders on?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, that's so good. And I think that sometimes people forget that it is, your life plan is a working document. It's open. You're only dealing with your own timetable. We're all on our own timetable. And sometimes we forget that because you start looking at what other people are doing. You feel like you're getting left behind, you feel like they, name it, you think it, right? But it's so important to remember that we are all on our own business and life journey. And that looks different for every single person.
Right.
And that's okay. And it's okay. So kind of getting out of your head and thinking, looking around and thinking, oh, I'm behind. Oh, I'm 50 years old. I can't do this. Or I'm, to your point earlier, how you don't want to wake up at like 56 and still not be able to do what you want to do. I try to get people out of that mindset where even if they wake up late, yes, you can still do this. It may not look the same way as it did when you were in your 20s and 30s, but that doesn't mean that it can't still be fulfilling and still can't impact someone. And that someone might be just yourself. And that's okay.
Well, and to be honest with the audience, when I made my changes, I was in my 60s. Okay. And I remember, and this is a very strange story, but when I had my first son, I was 25 years old. There was a woman in the bed next to me. She was, I think, 29, and she was having her fourth child. And I sort of looked over and I thought, oh my God, she's old. 4 years, okay? She was having her fourth child, and I was thinking to myself, oh no, I don't want to have children when I'm 29 years old. I'm gonna have, I have this one, I'm gonna turn around now, have another one. Or I don't know where my mind was. And luckily that didn't happen. But I had another child 15 years later. So here I was 40, having my second child, but I didn't feel old. I didn't think about, you know, what my roommate at the hospital might say if she looked over and figured out that I was 40 years old. It didn't matter to me because this was part of my journey. And when I left corporate America and I looked at the calendar and realized I'm in my 60s, it was like, okay, so what? What is it you want to do? And there were people who said, who's going to listen to you?
Mhm.
And my comment was, I don't know. We will find out. And I think when we talk about our core values, we have to realize that no matter how old we are, we have core values. And if we can connect to them and allow someone like you help us see the possibilities. And possibilities are not always in dollar signs. And I think that's important that everyone understands. Yes, we all want to get wealthy. We all think that's a great idea. I wouldn't mind being wealthier than I am today. But I'm not going to give up myself for that dollar figure. So how do you help somebody who comes in and thinks that all you're trying to do is get them to make more money so they can keep spending more money, whether it's your services or somebody else's?
Yeah, that can be a challenge when the mindset has always been money first, right? And that's what's going to equal comfortability and happiness. And I don't take every client because, I'm evaluating them just as much as they're evaluating me. And it has to be a good fit because there has to be a level of trust there so that they can understand that everything that I am proposing to them is for their benefit and for their good. And one thing that I always bring up is, and I always ask, what does freedom mean to you? Because if freedom is financial security, then okay, that's where we're going to go with this. Try to get you as much money as possible. But if freedom means you want the freedom to enjoy your life in all aspects, not just money, but if you want the freedom to be able to walk in your purpose, then that's a different conversation. And that's a different set of, of tools that I might help you with to realize and to really get yourself solidified and out there. So that's why we have a whole team that deals with things. I always joke around about the fact that I probably should have gone and gotten a second degree in psychology because PR work is, done right, is also a little bit of therapy in there and some counseling as well, because I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and C-suite executives and people who are very driven, but sometimes they just need a little bit of help with what they really want as opposed to the expectations of everybody around them.
Well, as an PR specialist, you really are a coach. And I think that's important for people to understand, is that you're not telling them what to do. You're pulling it out of them what they want to do, and then helping them find those tools to do it. And until I started working with two coaches, I always thought I could figure things out. And yes, I could, but was I figuring them out the hard way, the wrong way, and making more and more mistakes? But by having that person to talk it through, I could see when I was being real
Yes.
and when I was trying to hide behind something. I remember the first time I met with this coach that I've been with for 8.5 years. She just sat across from me and said, "Okay, now can you tell me the real truth?" And I said, "You calling me a liar?" She said, "No." She said, "You're fantasizing. You're not a liar. You're fantasizing. Now tell me the real truth." I thought about it for even less than a second, and I said, "You're right." And it just came out of me. And she said, "Okay, now you really have something to work." And that's what got me into coaching as well, because I realized how difficult it is sometimes for us to be honest with ourselves.
Oh, so hard. It's interesting because I think about all of the advice that I give clients and I'm just like, I should probably be doing some of this. And I do have a really great team around me who will say things like, so did you eat today? Did you do this? Did you take care of yourself? Did you schedule your vacation? Did you say no? Did you make sure that your boundaries are nice and set and strong and all of the things, right? So all of the things that I care about my clients. I care that their well-being as well as their business health is on point, because if you are not where you need to be mentally and physically, your business isn't going to be there either.
That's why you, as the PR person, as the coach, need to be taking care of yourself as well. And, last week I turned down a client because I was not in the best place I needed to be. And I realized that, on the first consult, it was like, wow, I'm hearing words, I'm just not grasping them. And at the end of the conversation, I said, "You have to understand, it's not that I don't want to take you on, but I'm not right for you at this moment." And they gave them a list of individuals they could contact. And it was like, "Look, you're giving up business." And I said, "No, they'll come back. But right now, I got to take care of me." And there were a few things that I was going through that I was being triggered. And I was like, "Okay, now how do you do this?" And part of it was I was just working 10, 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
And it was like, I need to take a break, which I'm going to be doing this week. I'm going to be traveling tomorrow and going away for a week. So I will be taking my break. But in the meantime, tell us how our listeners can find you and connect with you and learn more.
Okay, wonderful. So my website is jswmediagroup.com. You can see a full list of services, read all about the team, current projects. We have a great newsroom where I update what all of the clients are up to and their latest press. I am very active on social media, so you can hit me personally at Jameka Shame on Instagram. That's JAMEKA Shamae. I love interacting with folks on a personal basis. And then you can also reach the company on Instagram at JSW Media.
Put it in the show notes. So for those listening, if you didn't get it, don't worry about it. It is written. If you still can't find it, you can always contact us at newclevelandradio.net and we give you information. Jameka, it's been wonderful talking to you today. Take some time for yourself. You know you need that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It has been lovely, and this has been a great conversation, and I hope it resonates with the listeners.
Thank you so much. Have a great day now. Bye-bye.
Bye.